if people come together and it's all about personalities, that group's not going to last very long.
Oh my.
Because you're going to rub me the wrong way. I'm going to rub you the wrong way. It's like that one guy wearing the T-shirt that said, "I've got one nerve left, and you're on it." If people and people do sometimes, and it's not just the church; it's any that people don't get along sometimes and things like that. But if we have a purpose that is bigger than our personalities, personalities come and go. Personalities, somebody can be happy one day, not happy the next. If all we're doing it's about personalities, we're going to be a pretty fickle, not a real strong group. But if we have a purpose, which is the building of Jesus' church and the Great Commission, making disciples of all nations, preaching the gospel to every creature, creating wholesome fellowship, strong discipleship. If we have purpose, then we can really, God will build us into a powerful spiritual house. But it's going to take all the living stones together for that to happen.
Exactly. And that's why, and I like to say this often, everybody's in full-time ministry. While you were talking, you made me think about this quote where it's been said that experts built the Titanic and amateurs built the Ark.
Yeah.
And that's so true today. And it's almost like sometimes we want the experts to come in, and it's the ordinary people that God uses. Wilbur and Orville Wright were bicycle mechanics. And here they created the first flying machine. And,
Right.
You're describing all these things, and we've had all of that and more in the body of Christ. Personality, celebrity mentality. And, I say this often, we have a growth track that we do. Well, we do 3, first, second, and third Sunday of every month. So I will teach the first one when I'm available to do it. And basically I'll make this statement often. I say, church hurts are the worst hurts. Every time I say that, Brother Tony, heads start nodding everywhere. And I kind of joke about it that you really can't be a member of CFAN unless you've been hurt really good at a church, because the rest of us can't identify with you. So all of those things, God uses imperfect people. He uses flawed people. Now, that's not an excuse for us to go out and be reckless and careless.
Right.
But man, when we look in the Bible, but back to the hurting people, you make the comment here, hurting people are waiting on the gifts inside of you. I like to say it this way. I see where a lot of times the Lord builds a message into us. I love to hear you teach. You've got books. There's so many things as you're talking. We could go 14 different directions. One of the things that you do is you take tours over in the sites of the 7 churches.
Right.
And I remember one day, you and I have been known to have 1 hour and 2 hour phone calls because we just get caught up in the things of the Lord. But we were talking about Laodicea being a lukewarm church.
Yeah.
And this is when we could drop the plow down a little bit deeper here for a minute, because I remember when I was a new believer, and I read where Jesus said, "I need you hot or cold," because he said you're lukewarm, and he said, "I want you one or the other. I'm going to vomit you out of my mouth." There's a story behind that in Laodicea with the water.
Yeah.
And tell us that story, and why is it that lukewarm is not acceptable?
Well, we interpret that through our Western mind, our American mind. And so we think, okay, Jesus said, you're not hot, you're not cold, you're lukewarm. And so we automatically think, well, hot is good. That's on fire for God. And cold, that means somebody's cold and, not open and shut off and that type of thing. But you stop and think about it. Cold water's pretty nice on a hot day.
Yes, it is.
And hot water's pretty nice on a cold morning when you need a hot shower. So hot and cold are actually both good. The lukewarm is, and especially right in that area of Laodicea, There are two
And
other.
what country is that?
This is modern day Turkey.
Modern day Turkey
Yeah,
is
modern
where
day
those
Turkey.
7 churches were.
All 7 churches: Ephesus, Smyrna,
Thyatira.
Thyatira, Pergamum, Sardis, and Philadelphia, Laodicea. They're all in that area. But down in the area of Laodicea, there are 2 other towns very close. One is Hierapolis, which is mentioned in the book of Colossians. And then Colossae is very close to Laodicea. You can go to Hierapolis this very day. And when you're driving from, many miles away, you're in this, what's called the Lycus Valley. And you look across, maybe 10 miles away, you see it's snow. There's a snow-covered hill over there. But it may be summer, and it may be 80 degrees. It's not snow, it's mineral deposits. They have hot mineral springs. And the last time we were there, the time before, we always stay at a hotel in that area where they have a swimming pool that is 100% naturally fed by the hot springs right in the area of Hierapolis. And the water is just amazing. You get in that water and it's hot and you soak in it. And the mineral, your skin feels so good. So that was the hot water they understood. Not in Laodicea, in Hierapolis, 10 miles away. Colossae is a few miles away from Laodicea, and it's sitting at the base of some mountains and got beautiful cold spring water coming down from the mountains. And so Hierapolis had the hot water that was good for soaking. Colossae had the cold water that was good for drinking. And Laodicea, he said, you're not hot like Hierapolis.
Okay.
You're not cold like Colossae. You're lukewarm. And to this day in Laodicea, you can see they were terracotta pipes, and they're encrusted with mineral water, but it wasn't hot when it got to them. It's lukewarm mineral water. And you
wouldn't want to drink
and
it.
Jesus said, when Jesus says you're not hot water is useful for soaking, medicinal purposes. Cold water is useful for a refreshing drink. Lukewarm water's just not really good for anything. And so when Jesus said, you're neither hot nor cold, he's saying, those both are useful, but you're not useful to me. He said, as a matter of fact, it makes me want to spit you out of my mouth. And the church of Laodicea was a church that was full of self-reliance, self-assurance, self-righteousness. And when Jesus talked to them in Revelation chapter 3, he said, you say that you are rich and have need of nothing and so on. But Jesus said, no, you don't realize that you're wretched and you're miserable and you're poor. You're neither hot nor cold. You're lukewarm. I wish you were hot or cold. And so really what the whole purpose of that thing is to saying Jesus wants believers who are useful. Useful, the water's useful, the warm water, the cold water is useful. God wants us to be useful for his purposes in the earth. And incidentally, Jesus said to that church, he said, I'm standing at the door knocking. If you'd open the door, I'd come in. Jesus shouldn't have to be knocking on the door of the church.
He's literally on the outside.
He's
of
literally
his own
on
church.
the outside, because those people, I think it was D.L. Moody, let me get the quote right. He said, God sends no one away empty except for the person who's full of himself.
Ooh.
And the church at Laodicea they were full of themselves.
Now, is it true, Tony, that in that day they were really, from a worldly standard, doing good? They
were
said,
very wealthy.
Yeah, rich, increased with goods, but they thought they had need of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So they would be what we might call a happening church.
Yeah. And they were socially prosperous. They had a lot going for them. But they were so full of their self-importance that they just gotten into spiritual pride. And so Jesus had to tell them, and he said, as many as I love, I rebuke. So if God gets on our case because we're not being useful, It's because he loves us. God doesn't rebuke us because he hates us.
Yes.
But many of us all through life, I've had to do, I know you've had to do it. You probably more than me. No, I'm kidding. But we've all had to make adjustments
Totally.
so that God could use us. You know, Jonah had to make an adjustment. God told him, Jonah, I want you to go to Nineveh. Well, that was the capital of the Assyrian Empire, and they were Israel's bitter enemies.
Oh my God.
And so Jonah gets on a boat. Instead of going from Israel, all he had to do is go north and east a little bit to get to Nineveh. Nineveh's in modern day Iraq. But instead he gets on a boat to go to Tarshish, which is modern day Spain. And if you can picture a map, Spain is as far the opposite direction he could go. And Jonah at one time had said, God, I'll be your servant. I'll do whatever you want me to do. And God said, well, good, I want you to go tell some people you hate how much I love them. You know, I'm paraphrasing modern day.
Right.
And Jonah said, no, I don't want to. And he runs away. So he wasn't useful to God. And so, you know, our prayer should just be, God, use us, you know, whether it's to help somebody, you know, with some little Dorcas, Tabitha in the book of Acts, when she died and Peter went and raised her from the dead. But the beautiful thing about that story, I mean, of course, it's beautiful that God raised her from the dead, is that when she died, the people, the widows in particular, were gathered and they were holding up all these scarves and shawls and different things she had made for them. She wasn't a preacher. She just made things for people. She used her talents to make clothing articles for people, and it was a generous heart, and people, you know, were moved by her life because she'd given herself, and a person who only lives for themselves and what they can get, that's a pretty small package.
Thank you for watching this video, and be sure to explore more of my YouTube channel for more content like this. And if you want to learn more about what we do, or if you want to partner with us, be sure to visit my website at markcowart.org. May the Lord bless you richly.